Most people believe the Pope in white rules the Catholic Church. But what if the real authority wears black? For centuries, whispers of a man known only as the Black Pope have echoed through the marble halls of the Vatican. A figure said to wield more influence than even the Holy Father himself. He moves unseen, commands absolute loyalty, and shapes decisions that touch millions of lives. So who is he really? And why does the Church never speak his name aloud? Welcome to Pillow, Historian. Tonight, you slip into the shadows of Rome, where candlelight flickers on ancient walls, and secrets hum like a distant storm. The air smells of old parchment and incense, and you're about to uncover a story so tangled, you probably won't. Survive this without questioning everything you thought you knew about power. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where you're drifting off from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand in a darkened corridor of the Vatican, the kind of place where footsteps echo and portraits seem to watch. The Black Pope isn't a myth, but he's not exactly advertised on the St. Peter's Square gift shop mugs either. His title belongs to the Superior General of the Society of Jesus. The Jesuit's a man whose black cassock gives him his ominous nickname. Unlike the Pope, he doesn't wave from balconies or bless crowds. His power is quieter, sharper, like a blade hidden in velvet. You might think the Pope, with his golden throne and global spotlight, holds all the cards. But historians still argue whether the Black Pope's influence rooted in discipline, intellect, and a knack for staying out of sight outweighs the visible pomp of the papacy. Let's rewind. The year is 1540, and you're in Rome, where the air is thick with the sweat of pilgrims and the buzz of Reformation debates. The Catholic Church is reeling, Protestants are splitting off, and the Pope needs a counterstrike. Enter Ignatius of Loyola, a Spanish soldier turned mystic with a limp and a vision. He founds the Jesuits, a new religious order promising absolute obedience to the Pope. Sounds loyal, right? But here's the quirky tidbit. Ignatius's men are nicknamed God's Marines for their military precision, and some whisper they're a bit too good at following orders, especially when those orders come from their own general. You can almost hear the Vatican courtiers muttering, "Who's really in charge here?" You step into a Jesuit meeting room, the kind with oak tables and maps pinned to the walls. The Superior General, the Black Pope, isn't just a priest, he's a strategist. His role, cemented by Ignatius's constitutions, is to lead the Jesuits worldwide, directing their missions, schools, and here's where it gets juicy: political maneuvers. A mainstream historical fact: the Jesuits' constitutions, approved by Pope Paul III in 1540, demand that every Jesuit swear a vow of obedience to both the Pope and their general. But when those loyalties clash, who wins? You can feel the tension. Like a taut rope ready to snap. Picture yourself flipping through a dusty Vatican archive. You find a letter sealed with wax, hinting at the general's reach. He doesn't command armies, but his Jesuits are everywhere, advising kings, teaching princes, even whispering in the ears of merchants. Their influence is like smoke, impossible to grab, but it stings your eyes. By the late 16th century, they're in courts from Lisbon to Vienna, shaping policies while swearing it's all for God's glory. You smirk, wondering if that's the whole story. After all, if you're running a global network of hyper-educated priests, you're not just praying the rosary all day. Now, let's pause for a chuckle. Imagine a 16th century noble, sweating in his velvet doublet, terrified the Jesuits know. His secret's like that time he tried to bribe a bishop with a crate of oranges. Silly, sure, but it captures the paranoia. The Black Pope's power thrives on perception. People believe he's pulling strings, and that belief makes it true. You glance at the candle on your imaginary desk. It's burning low, casting shadows that look like cloaked figures. Are the Jesuits really masterminds? Or is this just the Church's oldest PR problem? You wander deeper into the Vatican's maze, where the air grows colder and the walls feel like they're listening. The Black Pope's anonymity is his shield. Unlike the Pope, whose every sneeze makes headlines, the General operates in the margins. His name men like Peter Canisius or Francis Xavier in the early days barely registers outside Jesuit circles. Yet their letters, preserved in archives, show they're not just praying. They're negotiating, advising, sometimes even nudging history. You can't help but wonder, is this guy the Church's secret weapon or its biggest liability? Let's toss in another joke to keep you awake. Picture the Black Pope trying to update his LinkedIn. Superior General, Society of Jesus, skills, global strategy, vow enforcement, dodging conspiracies. Please, no recruiters. You laugh, but it's uneasy. The Jesuits' vow of poverty means the general lives simply, yet his influence rivals emperors. How? It's the network. Jesuits are trained for years, philosophy, theology, even astronomy, making them the Renaissance equivalent of Ivy League grads. You imagine them as the ultimate multitaskers, preaching in the morning, decoding a diplomat's letter by noon, and stargazing at night. Back to the story. You're now in a Roman tavern, circa 1600, eavesdropping on gossip. A merchant swears the Jesuits rigged a trade deal. A priest insists they're saints. The truth? Probably somewhere in the middle. Historians still argue whether the Black Pope's power is deliberate or just a side effect of Jesuit efficiency. What's clear is the general's role gives him leverage access to information, loyalty of thousands, and a direct line to the Pope. You feel a chill, not from the tavern's drafty windows, but from realizing how easily influence can hide in plain sight. You step outside, the cobblestones slick underfoot. The Black Pope's story isn't about crowns or armies. It's about ideas, whispered in the right ears at the right time. His Jesuits are the Church's intellectual elite, and he's their conductor. You glance up at the stars, wondering how one man in a simple black robe could cast such a long shadow. The night feels heavier now, and you're not sure if you're ready for what's next. But you're in too deep to turn back. You're back in Rome, 1534, but the air feels sharper now, charged with ambition and danger. You're trailing Ignatius of Loyola, the man who birthed the Jesuits, as he limps through the city's narrow alleys. His soldiers' boots scuff the dirt, and you can smell the leather and dust on him. The Society of Jesus is about to be born, and you're here to witness its secretive origins, the foundation of the Black Pope's power. This isn't just a religious order. It's a machine built with precision to serve the Church, or maybe to steer it. You lean closer, catching the glint in Ignatius's eyes. Something big is coming, and you're not sure the world's ready. Picture a cramped room, lit by a single candle, where Ignatius and 6 companions gather. They're a ragtag. Crew students, dreamers, ex-soldiers bound by a shared fire. You hear their low voices, swearing poverty, chastity, and obedience. But it's the last vow that makes you pause. Absolute loyalty to the Pope, a mainstream historical fact. August 15th, 1534. These men take their vows in Montmartre, Paris. laying the groundwork for the Society of Jesus. But here's the catch: Ignatius isn't just creating priests. He's forging a new kind of warrior, one who fights with intellect and discipline, not swords. You can almost taste the tension. In the room, like ozone before a storm. Now, let's slip in a quirky tidbit. Ignatius, the ex-soldier, once challenged a man to a duel over a theological argument, hardly the saintly vibe you'd expect. You chuckle, imagining him squaring up in his cassock, ready to throw punches for Jesus. But that fiery spirit shapes the Jesuits. Ignatius envisions an order that's mobile, educated, and fiercely loyal, ready to go anywhere the Pope points. You glance at the group's faces, lit by flickering light. They're not just praying, they're planning, sketching a future where the Black Pope will hold sway. You step outside, the night air cool against your skin. Rome buzzes with rumors of reform and rebellion. The Protestant Reformation is tearing Europe apart, and the Catholic Church needs a comeback. Ignatius knows this, and his Jesuits are the answer. You follow him to a meeting with Pope Paul III, the air thick with incense and suspicion. The Pope's advisors eye Ignatius warily, like he's a wolf in a priest's robe. Historians still argue whether the Jesuits were meant to be the Church's loyal servants or a power unto themselves. You feel the weight of that question, heavy as the Vatican's marble walls. Let's pause for a joke. Imagine Ignatius pitching the Jesuits like a startup. We're lean, we're mean, we're the Pope's dream team, just don't ask about our exit strategy. You grin, but the reality's no laughing matter. The Jesuit structure, formalized in 1540, is a masterpiece of control. The superior general, our Black Pope, sits at the top, elected for life by a secretive council. You picture the general's office, not grand but functional, with maps and letters stacked high. He doesn't rule by force, but by trust, commanding thousands of Jesuits who'd walk through fire for him. You slip into a Jesuit training house, where young recruits study by lamplight. The scent of ink and wax fills the air. These men aren't your average monks. They're learning theology, languages, even mathematics. Ignatius demands versatility, and you can see why. A Jesuit might preach in a village one day, advise a king the next, then sail to Asia to convert a warlord. You marvel at their stamina, but there's a shadow here. The general's authority is absolute, his word law. You wonder, is this devotion to God or to the man in black? Let's weave in another joke to keep you cozy. Picture a Jesuit recruit, bleary-eyed, muttering, "I signed up for salvation, not advanced calculus." You laugh softly, but the training's no joke. By the 1550s, Jesuit schools are popping up across Europe, shaping minds and loyalties. You walk through one, hearing the hum of Latin recitations. These schools aren't just for faith. They're power hubs, training noble sons who'll carry Jesuit ideas into courts and councils. The Black Pope's influence grows, quiet as a whisper, strong as iron. You're now in a tavern, overhearing merchants grumble about those meddling Jesuits. One swears they're spies, another calls them saints. You sip your imaginary ale, amused by the paranoia. But there's truth in the rumors. Ignatius designs the Jesuits to be adaptable, slipping into any role: teacher, diplomat, missionary. You recall Section 1's whispers of the general's reach, like smoke you can't grasp. That's no accident. Ignatius builds a system where the Black Pope can influence without being seen, his power rooted in the Jesuits' global web. Back in Rome, you stand outside the Gesu, the Jesuits' mother church, its facade still under construction. The stone feels cold under your hand, solid as the order's resolve. Ignatius dies in 1556, but his vision lives. The second general, Diego Lainez, steps into the role, and you sense the Black Pope's mantle passing unbroken. Lainez, a scholar with a lawyer's mind, expands the order's reach, sending Jesuits to Asia and the Americas. You imagine there, ships, sails snapping in the wind, carrying not just faith but strategy. You pause, the city quiet now, stars sharp overhead. The Jesuits' origins reveal a paradox. An order built to serve the Pope, yet led by a general whose power rivals his master's. You feel the weight of that truth, like a stone in your pocket. The Black Pope's story is just beginning, and you're already tangled in its threads. Each Jesuit, each school, each mission strengthens his grip, and you can't help but wonder what he'll do with it. The night stretches on, and you're ready to follow the trail deeper. You're in a candlelit chamber, somewhere in Rome, 1560. The air is heavy with the scent of wax and old wood, and you're witnessing something few ever see. The Jesuit superior general, the Black Pope, taking his oath. Shadows dance on the walls as Diego Lainez, Ignatius's successor, kneels before a simple crucifix. His voice is low, steady, but the words carry a weight that makes your skin prickle. This ritual, the heart of the Black Pope's authority, binds him to his role and his men to him. You're about to learn what makes this vow so chilling and why it fuels whispers of hidden power. The room is sparse, just a table, a Bible, and a handful of Jesuits standing silent. Lainez swears obedience to the Pope, to God, and to the Jesuit mission. But there's a twist. He also pledges to lead with absolute authority over his order. You catch the glint in his eyes' devotion. Yes, but also resolve, like a general before battle. A mainstream historical fact. The Jesuit constitutions, finalized in 1558, require the general to take a lifelong vow, ensuring his control over the Society of Jesus until death. You feel the gravity of that promise, like a door locking behind you. Now for a quirky tidbit. The Jesuits' oath includes a vow of special obedience to the Pope, but rumors swirl that some early Jesuits jokingly called it obedience to the general's left eyebrow, a nod to his unchallenged command. You smirk, imagining Lainez raising that eyebrow to silence a room. But the humor fades as you listen. The oath isn't just words. It's a contract, forged in discipline, demanding every Jesuit follow the general's orders, no questions asked. You wonder, is this loyalty to faith or to the man in black? You step closer, the floor creaking underfoot. The oath ceremony feels like a secret society's initiation, though the Jesuits would scoff at the comparison. Lainez rises, his black cassock rustling, and the other Jesuits kneel to him. It's not worship officially, but it's close. You recall Section 2's glimpse of Ignatius's vision, a mobile, disciplined order. This oath is the engine, binding thousands of Jesuits worldwide to one man. You can almost hear the hum of that machine, its gears turning from Rome to distant missions. Let's toss in a joke to lighten the mood. Picture a nervous Jesuit recruit whispering, "What if I sneeze during the oath? Does that void the contract?" You chuckle, but the tension lingers. The general's authority is no laughing matter. His vow gives him power to assign missions, approve strategies, even discipline wayward Jesuits. You imagine a letter from Lainez, sealed with wax, ordering a priest to sail to Japan or infiltrate a Protestant court. The recipient wouldn't dare refuse, not with that oath hanging over him. You slip outside, the Roman night cool and quiet. The oath's echoes follow you, raising questions. Historians still argue whether the general's vow creates a shadow papacy, a rival to the Pope's authority. The Jesuits insist they're loyal servants, but you can't shake the feeling that Lainez holds a trump card. His men are trained to obey him first, and that loyalty is a weapon subtle but sharp. You glance at the stars, wondering how far. This power reaches. Now you're in a Jesuit archive, flipping through parchment records. The oath isn't just for the general. Every Jesuit takes a version, swearing to follow their superiors. You find a faded document detailing the fourth vow, taken by elite Jesuits, pledging direct service to the Pope. But here's the rub. The general decides who takes it and when. You feel a chill, not from the damp stone walls, but from the realization that Lainez controls the flow of loyalty, like a dam holding back a river. Another joke to keep you cozy. Imagine Lainez running a Jesuit team-building retreat. Trust fall? Nah. Trust my orders? Or it's a one-way ticket to Siberia. You grin, but the oath's seriousness sinks in. By the 1570s, the Jesuits are expanding, and Lainez's successors like Everard Mercurian inherit this ironclad system. You picture Mercurian, another black pope, reviewing reports from missions in Asia, Europe, and beyond. His oath ensures every Jesuit, from scholar to missionary, moves in lockstep with his will. You're now walking Rome's cobblestone streets, passing a Jesuit church. The facade gleams in the moonlight, but you're drawn to the shadows. The oath's secrecy fuels suspicion. You overhear a merchant mutter about Jesuit plots, blaming them for everything from bad harvests to royal assassinations. You roll your eyes. Classic 16th century gossip, but there's a kernel of truth. The general's vow creates a closed system, opaque to outsiders. You recall Section 1's whispers of the Black Pope's influence, like smoke you can't grab. The oath is why. Back in the archive, you find a letter from a Jesuit missionary, describing his obedience to the general's orders, even when it meant leaving his family forever. The devotion is staggering, almost unsettling. You wonder what it's like to surrender so completely. The general's power rests on this trust, but it's a tightrope. One misstep, say, a scandal or a rogue Jesuit, could unravel it. You close the book, dust rising in the candlelight, and feel the weight of that risk. You step into the night again, the air crisp, the city asleep. The Black Pope's oath is more than a ritual. It's the blueprint for his authority, a vow that binds men across continents. You think back to Ignatius's cramped room in Section 2, where this all began. The Jesuits are growing, and the general's shadow stretches longer. You're not sure if you're awed or unnerved, but one thing's clear. This oath is the key to everything, and you're only starting to unlock its secrets. You're standing in a Vatican courtyard, 1580, a sun glinting off marble statues. The air smells of roses and intrigue, and you sense a quiet war brewing, not with swords, but with words and loyalties. The Black Pope, now Claudio Acquaviva, the young superior general, moves through the shadows of power, his black cassock a stark contrast to the Pope's white. You're here to navigate the tension between the Jesuits and the papacy, a rivalry that simmers beneath the church's polished surface. It's a dance of deference and defiance, and you're close enough to hear the music. The Vatican hums with activity cardinals in red, scribes scurrying with parchments. You catch a glimpse of Pope Gregory XIII, his face lined with worry. The Jesuits, led by Acquaviva, are the church's sharpest tool, but tools can cut both ways. A mainstream historical fact. In 1581, Gregory XIII grants the Jesuits privileges, like exemption from certain taxes, boosting their autonomy. But you sense the catch. The Pope needs the Jesuits to counter Protestantism, yet their growing influence schools, missions, royal advisors makes him uneasy. You feel the friction, like static before a lightning strike. Here's a quirky tidbit to lighten the mood. Some Vatican gossips call the Jesuits the Pope's spies, but one courtier swears they're so sneaky they could steal the Pope's slippers and he'd thank them. You chuckle, imagining Aquaviva tiptoeing with a pair of papal loafers. But the humor fades as you notice the guarded glances between Jesuit envoys and papal aides. The Black Pope's power, rooted in the oath from Section 3, gives him a loyal army of priests answerable to him before anyone else. You wonder, does the Pope trust Aquaviva or fear him? You slip into a Vatican library, the air thick with dust and secrets. Shelves tower over you, stuffed with manuscripts. You overhear two cardinals whispering about the Jesuits' latest mission reports, sent directly to Aquaviva, not the Pope. Historians still argue whether the Black Pope's autonomy undermines the papacy or strengthens it. The Jesuits swear loyalty to the Holy Father, but their chain of command flows through the general. You imagine Aquaviva's desk, piled with letters from Jesuits in Paris, Madrid, even Japan. He's not just a priest. He's a CEO, and the Pope knows it. Let's pause for a joke. Picture the Pope and Aquaviva at a Vatican potluck. Claudio, your Jesuits bring the best intrigue, but next time, maybe just a casserole? You grin, but the rivalry's no feast. The Jesuit schools, like the Ramon College, churn out scholars who shape European thought. You visit one, hearing the buzz of Latin debates. These aren't just classrooms. They're power factories, and Aquaviva controls the keys. The Pope relies on their graduates to defend Catholicism, but each success makes the Jesuits harder to rein in. You're now in a papal audience chamber, velvet curtains muffling the tension. Gregory XIII praises the Jesuits publicly, but you catch his sidelong glance at Aquaviva. The general's face is serene, unreadable. You recall Section 2's glimpse of Ignatius's vision, an order loyal to the Pope, yet led by a general with near absolute control. That design is bearing fruit and thorns. The Jesuits' missions from Poland to Peru spread Catholicism, but they also spread Aquaviva's influence. You feel the Pope's dilemma. Clip the Jesuits' wings, and he weakens his own defense. Let them soar, and he risks losing control. Another joke to keep you cozy. Imagine Aquaviva's to-do list. Morning prayer, check. Outsmart Protestants, check. Remind Pope whose boss-ups, scratch that. You laugh softly, but the stakes are high. By the 1580s, the Jesuits advise kings, like Philip II of Spain, on matters of faith and policy. You picture a Jesuit confessor whispering to a monarch while Aquaviva reads the report. The Pope has his own advisors, but they're scattered, less disciplined. You sense the Black Pope's edge, like a chess player who's already seen the board's endgame. You step outside, the courtyard now shadowed as dusk falls. The rivalry isn't overt no-shouting matches or duels, but it's real. You hear a rumor. Some cardinals want to limit Jesuit privileges, fearing they're special. Obedience to the Pope is a loophole for Aquaviva's agenda. You recall Section 1's whispers of the Black Pope's hidden power, like smoke you can't grasp. Here, that smoke is thicker, curling around every decision. The Pope needs the Jesuits to fight heretics, but each victory strengthens Aquaviva's hand. You wander to a quiet chapel, its stained glass glowing faintly. You find a Jesuit praying, his face calm but focused. He's loyal to Aquaviva, who's loyal to the Pope, or so the chain goes. But you wonder, what happens when loyalties split? The general's oath binds his men to him, and his influence schools Missions, confessions gives him leverage the Pope can't match. You feel a chill, not from the stone floor, but from the thought of a church divided, not by enemies, but by its own defenders. Back in the courtyard, you watch Acquaviva leave, his steps silent, purposeful. The Pope's balcony is empty, but you imagine Gregory watching, weighing his ally and rival. The Black Pope's power isn't in crowns or armies, but in minds, Jesuits, and those they shape. You think of Section 3's oath, its ironclad loyalty. That vow makes Acquaviva a king in all but name, and the Pope knows it. The night settles, heavy with unspoken questions, and you're ready to follow this rivalry's next twist. You're in a bustling port, 1590, the air thick with salt and ambition. Ships creak, their sails snapping as Jesuits board for distant lands, Japan, India, the Americas. You're tracing the Black Pope's global web, spun by Claudio Acquaviva, the superior general, whose reach stretches far beyond Rome's marble halls. His Jesuits are everywhere, weaving a network of influence that feels like a living thing, pulsing with purpose. You smell tar and hear gulls cry, but your focus is on the men in black cassocks, carrying not just Bibles but strategies. This is where the Black Pope's power goes global, and you're about to see how the docks hum with activity merchants haggle, sailors curse, and Jesuits move with quiet precision. A mainstream historical fact. By the 1590s, the Society of Jesus operates missions on every continent except Australia, with over 8,000 members under Acquaviva's command. You watch a Jesuit, map in hand, board a ship for Goa. He's not just a missionary. He's an envoy, a teacher, maybe even a spy. You feel the scale of it, like a spiderweb spanning oceans, each thread tied to the Black Pope's will. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some sailors swear Jesuits bring good luck to ships, but only if you don't ask what's in their locked trunks. Rumors say it's gold, or maybe coded letters. You grin, imagining a Jesuit smuggling secrets past nosy deckhands. But the truth is less flashy. Acquaviva's web is built on communication letters, reports, even verbal codes that keep him informed of every mission. You picture his Roman office, a fortress of parchment, where he tracks his men like a general moving. Pieces on the board. You board a ship yourself, the deck swaying underfoot. The Jesuit beside you speaks of converting souls, but you catch him glancing at a diplomatic pouch. Historians still argue whether the Jesuits' global missions were purely religious or a front for political influence. You lean against the railing, the sea stretching endless before you. Acquaviva's men don't just preach. They advise rulers, negotiate treaties, and shape trade routes. You recall Section 4's Vatican tensions. Here, far from the Pope's gaze, the Black Pope's power feels unchecked. Let's slip in a joke to keep you steady. Picture Acquaviva trying to video conference with his missionaries. Brother Francis, you're muted. Oh wait, it's 1590. Send a pigeon. You chuckle, but the logistics are no joke. The Jesuits' constitutions, from Section 2, demand constant reports to the general. You imagine couriers racing across continents, carrying news of rebellions, conversions, or royal intrigues. This network isn't just spiritual. It's a machine feeding Acquaviva information that even kings envy. You're now in a Jesuit mission in Beijing, 1600, the air scented with jasmine and ink. Matteo Ricci, a Jesuit star, maps the stars for the Chinese emperor, blending faith with science. You marvel at his tact. He's not just preaching. He's winning trust, planting seeds for Acquaviva's influence. You recall Section 3's oath, binding Jesuits to the general. Ricci's loyalty to Aquaviva is ironclad, his reports flowing back to Rome like a river. You feel the Black Pope's presence, thousands of miles away, guiding every move. Another joke to keep you cozy. Imagine a Jesuit in Japan, bowing to a samurai. Convert? Sure, but first, let's discuss your sword-sharpening technique. You laugh, but the stakes are high. Jesuits adapt to local cultures, wearing silk in China, learning samurai etiquette, making them dangerously effective. You wander through a mission school in Peru, hearing children recite Latin. These schools, funded by local elites, spread Catholicism, but also Jesuit ideals. You sense Aquaviva's strategy, influence the young, and you shape the future. You're back on the ship, now docked in Lisbon. A Jesuit hands a sealed letter to a courier, bound for Rome. You catch a glimpse of the wax seal Aquaviva's crest. The network's strength is its secrecy, its speed. You think of Section 1's whispers of the Black Pope's hidden power, like smoke you can't grab. Here, that smoke is a web, linking missions, schools, and royal courts. You overhear a merchant grumble about Jesuit meddling in trade deals. He's not wrong. Jesuits advise on everything from spice routes to colonial policies. Now you're in a Roman archive, 1605, flipping through mission reports. The parchment smells of time, and you're struck by the detail names, dates, even weather conditions. Aquaviva uses this data to steer his order, deciding where to send men or money. You feel a chill, not from the stone walls, but from the realization that this web isn't just reactive, it's proactive, shaping events before they unfold. You wonder, is Aquaviva serving the church or building an empire? You step into the night, the port quiet now, stars reflecting on the water. The Black Pope's global web is a marvel, but it's also a paradox. His Jesuits are loyal to the Pope, yet their reports go to Aquaviva first. You recall Section 4's papal rivalry out here. The Pope feels like a distant figure, while the general's hand is everywhere. The web keeps growing, its threads tightening, and you're caught in it, eager to see where it leads next. You're in a dusty mission outpost, 1610, somewhere in the jungles of Paraguay. The air is thick with humidity and the buzz of insects, and you're surrounded by Jesuit priests building a community called a reduction. The Black Pope, still. Claudio Aquaviva directs these efforts from Rome, but his presence feels close, like a shadow cast by the midday sun. You're here to question the Jesuits' missions. Are they spreading faith or chasing power? The scent of wood smoke and the hum of Guarani voices pull you in, and you're about to uncover the motives behind the Black Pope's global push. The reduction is a live children laugh. Artisans carve, and Jesuits teach scripture alongside farming. A mainstream historical fact. By 1610, Jesuits establish over 30 reducciones in South America, housing thousands of indigenous converts under their protection. You watch a priest, his cassock patched, show a Guarani boy how to plant maize. It looks noble, but you catch the priest's glance at ledger crops, converts, and tributes, all reported to Aquaviva. You feel the tension, like a bowstring pulled taut. Is this salvation or strategy? Here's a quirky tidbit. Locals call Jesuits men who talk to paper because they're always scribbling letters, maps, even star charts. You smirk, imagining a priest muttering, "Dear General, saved 12 souls, also discovered a new beetle." But those papers fuel Aquaviva's web. From Section 5, every mission sends reports, detailing not just baptisms, but trade routes and local politics. You wonder, are the Jesuits here to save souls, or to secure influence for the Black Pope. You wander the reduction, the earth warm underfoot. The Jesuits teach literacy and music, but they also enforce strict rules: no polygamy, no shaman rituals. The Guarani seem content, but you notice armed guards, Jesuit-trained, patrolling the perimeter. Historians still argue whether these missions were utopian refuges or colonial control hubs. You recall Section 3's oath, binding Jesuits to aquavivas. Will. This reduction isn't just a village. It's a node in his network, producing loyalty and resources. You feel a prickle of doubt. Whose kingdom are they building? Let's toss in a joke to keep you cool. Picture a Jesuit missionary, sweating, in his cassock, telling a Guarani elder, "Trust me, this hymn sounds better than your flute also. Sign this land deed." You chuckle, but the mission's dual purpose is no laughing matter. In Asia, Jesuits like Francis Xavier baptize thousands, but they also negotiate with warlords. You imagine Aquaviva reading a report from Japan, weighing souls saved against, alliances gained. His missions are chess moves, advancing the church and his own influence. You're now in a Jesuit college in Lisbon, 1615, where young priests train for missions. The air smells of ink and ambition. You overhear a lecture on accommodation, adapting Christianity to local cultures, like wearing Confucian robes in China. It's clever, but you sense a deeper game. By blending in, Jesuits gain access to elites, from emperors to merchants. You recall Section 4's Vatican rivalry. The Pope needs these missions to counter Protestantism, but each success strengthens Aquaviva's hand. You wonder if the Black Pope's motives are as pure as the Jesuits claim. Another joke to keep you cozy. Imagine Aquaviva's mission briefing. Convert the locals, map the rivers, and please don't start a war again. You grin, but the mission's political edge is sharp. In India, Jesuits advise Mughal rulers, slipping Catholic ideas into court debates. You picture a Jesuit dining with a governor, his smile disarming, his words calculated. These men aren't just preachers. They're diplomats, and their reports shape Aquaviva's strategies. You feel the weight of that power, like a stone in your hand. You're back in the reduction, watching a festival Guarani dancers, Jesuit hymns. It's harmonious. But you notice the Jesuits control the rhythm, deciding who leads and who follows. You think of Section 2's Ignatius, designing an order to serve the Pope. Yet here, far from Rome, the Black Pope's vision feels dominant. Missions generate wealth crops, crafts, even silver that funds more Jesuit schools and outposts. You sense a cycle. Faith fuels expansion, expansion fuels power, and power fuels Aquaviva. Now you're in a Roman archive, 1620, flipping through mission ledgers. The parchment crinkles, revealing profits from reducciones and Asian trade. You're struck by the detail: every bushel, every coin, accounted for. The Jesuits claim it's for God's work, but you wonder if it's also for leverage. You recall Section 1's whispers of the Black Pope's hidden influence, like smoke you can't grasp. Here, that smoke smells of money and ambition. Curling through every mission dot, you step into the jungle night, stars piercing the canopy. The Black Popes. Missions are a paradox spiritual triumphs, laced with worldly goals. You hear the Guarani singing, their voices haunting, and you're torn. Are the Jesuits saviors, exploiting faith for power, or both? Aquaviva's web, from Section 5, binds these outposts to him, and you feel its strength. The missions are his eyes, ears, and hands, reaching where the Pope's light barely touches. The night hums with questions, and you're ready to chase their answers. You're in a dimly lit tavern in Amsterdam, 1625, the air thick with tobacco smoke and suspicion. Outside, the canals glint under moonlight, but inside, merchants and scholars huddle, whispering about the Jesuits and their supposed plots to rule the world. You're here to delve into the dark roots of these conspiracy theories, the myths that paint the Black Pope as a puppet master. The superior general, now Museo Vitelleschi, is a distant figure in Rome, but his shadow looms large. In these fevered tailies, you sip a bitter ale, ears sharp, ready to untangle truth from paranoia. The tavern buzzes with gossip. Some call the Jesuits sorcerers. Others accuse them of poisoning kings. A mainstream historical fact. In 1618, the Moneta Secreta, a forged document claiming to reveal Jesuit schemes for world domination, begins circulating in Europe. You overhear a merchant clutch the pamphlet, swearing it proves the Black Pope plans to topple monarchs. You roll your eyes, but the fear is real. The Moneta is fake, yet it feeds a growing dread of Jesuit influence. You feel the weight of that myth, like a stone sinking in the canal outside. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some conspiracy nuts claim Jesuits use mind-controlling incense in their churches to sway congregations. You smirk, imagining Vitelleschi cackling over a cauldron of lavender. But the humor fades as you listen. These myths aren't random. They're rooted in the Jesuits' real power. Like the global web from Section 5, their schools, missions, and royal confessions make them seem omnipresent, and fear fills the gaps. You wonder, does the Black Pope encourage these rumors to amplify his mystique? You slip into a printer's shop, the air sharp with ink and sawdust. Pamphlets vilifying Jesuits pile high, accusing them of everything from bankrolling wars to rigging elections. Historians still argue whether the Black Pope deliberately fueled his own legend or simply benefited from it. You pick up a crude cartoon showing Vitelleschi as a spider, his web ensnaring crowns and crosses. It's exaggerated, but you recall Section 3's oath Jesuits' loyalty to the general is ironclad, making them a perfect canvas for paranoia. You feel a chill, not from the drafty shop, but from the power of perception. Let's toss in a joke. To keep you warm, picture Vitelleschi reading a conspiracy pamphlet. World domination? I can barely get my Jesuits to agree on lunch. You chuckle, but the myths have teeth. In Protestant strongholds like Amsterdam, Jesuits are banned, yet rumors of their secret agents persist. You imagine a Jesuit disguised as a fishmonger, slipping coded messages in herring barrels. The idea is absurd, but the Moneta Secreta claims exactly this secret instructions for Jesuits to infiltrate and control. You know it's a lie, yet its grip on the public is unshakable. You're now in a London coffeehouse, 1630, where intellectuals debate Jesuit plots. The air smells of roasted beans and ink. One scholar blames Jesuits for the gunpowder plot of 1605, a failed Catholic scheme to blow up Parliament. You know the evidence is shaky, but the accusation sticks. You recall Section 6's missions, where Jesuits advised rulers and shaped trade. That real influence, subtle, not sinister, gets twisted into tailies of global cabals. You sip your coffee, bitter as the truth. The Black Pope doesn't need to plot when his network already spans continents, not another joke to keep you cozy. Imagine a conspiracy theorist cornering Vitelleschi. Admit it, you control the weather. He sighs, if I did, Rome wouldn't flood every spring. You grin, but the myth's persistence is no joke. In Catholic courts, like Vienna, Jesuits are trusted advisors, yet even there, whispers of their true motives circulate. You Picture Vitelleschi in his Roman office, reading reports from Section 5's web. He doesn't need secret handshakes. His Jesuits, discipline, and reach are enough to spark fear. You're back in the Amsterdam tavern, the fire crackling low. A sailor swears Jesuits caused a shipwreck to sabotage Dutch trade. You shake your head, but you get it. The Black Pope's power, from Section 4's Vatican rivalry, thrives in the shadows. The moneta secreta may be fake, but it taps a real unease. A Jesuit's answer to Vitelleschi, not local bishops or kings. You feel the paranoia, thick as the smoke around you, blurring the line between fact and fiction. Now you're in a Roman. Archive 1635, flipping through Jesuit letters. The parchment smells of time, and you find Vitelleschi's calm responses to accusations, denials, clarifications, but never panic. He knows the myths fuel his order's aura, even as they invite scrutiny. You recall Section 1's whispers of the Black Pope's hidden power, like smoke you can't grasp. Here that smoke is deliberate, a fog that hides the Jesuits' true moves. You wonder, does Vitelleschi shape the narrative, or just ride its waves? You step into the night, the canals water black as ink. The Black Pope's conspiracy myths are a distorted mirror, reflecting his real influence missions, schools, loyalties, through a lens of fear. You hear a distant bell, and you're torn. Are the Jesuits victims of slander, or do they lean into the legend? Vitelleschi's web, from Section 5, holds the answer, and you're ready to chase its next thread, deeper into the shadows. You're in Rome, 1640, standing outside the Jesuit headquarters, the air heavy with the scent of olive trees and intrigue. Inside, the Black Pope, Nunzio Vitelleschi, wields tools of influence so subtle they're nearly invisible letters, loyalty, and intellect. You're here to examine the arsenal of the superior general, the quiet mechanisms that make his power enduring and elusive. The city hums around you, but your focus is on the man in black, whose authority doesn't need crowns or cannons. You step closer, the cobblestones cool underfoot, ready to uncover what fuels the Black Pope's command. The Jesuit headquarters, the Casa Professa, is no palace, just a sturdy building with narrow windows. You slip inside, where clerks sort letters by candlelight, a mainstream historical fact. By 1640, the Jesuits' global correspondence system, managed by the general, processes thousands of reports annually, linking missions, schools, and courts. You watch a scribe seal a letter for Japan, its contents known only to Vitelleschi. This isn't just mail. It's the nervous system of his order, feeding him knowledge others can only dream of. You feel the pulse of that system, steady as a heartbeat. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Romans joke that Jesuit letters are written in holy ink, charmed, to evade spies' pure nonsense, but it hints at their secrecy. You smirk, imagining Vitelleschi blessing a quill with a wink. But the truth is sharper. His arsenal starts with information-detailed reports from Section 5's web, covering everything from crop yields to royal moods. You picture his desk, buried under parchment, each sheet a lever to pull or a string to tug. The Black Pope doesn't fight battles. He shapes outcomes before they begin. You wander deeper into the Casa, where Jesuits debate theology and strategy. The air smells of wax and old books. Vitelleschi's second tool is loyalty, forged by the oath from Section 3. Every Jesuit, from novices to veterans, answers to him, their obedience absolute. You overhear a young priest accept a mission to Poland, no questions, just a nod. Historians still argue whether this loyalty makes the Jesuits a disciplined force or a dangerous cult. You feel the weight of that devotion, like a chain you can't see but know is there. Let's toss in a joke to keep you cozy. Picture Vitalisky running a Jesuit suggestion box. More missions, less Latin? Sorry, my oath says I decide. You chuckle, but his authority is no laughing matter. His third tool is intellect. Jesuits are trained for years, philosophy, science, rhetoric making them Europe's brain trust. You visit a Jesuit school, hearing students dissect Aristotle. These aren't just pupils. They're future advisors to kings, loyal to Vitellesky's vision. You recall Section 6's missions, where intellect won trust. Here, it's a weapon, honed and ready. You're now in a quiet chapel, where Vitellesky prays alone. His face is calm, but you sense the mind at work, calculating. His arsenal isn't flashy, no gold, no armies, but it's effective. He uses letters to steer missions, loyalty to bind his men, and intellect to influence elites. You think of Section 7's conspiracy myths, blaming him for everything from storms to coups. Those myths exaggerate, but they're rooted in this. A man who controls information, devotion, and ideas is unstoppable, even without a throne. Another joke to keep you warm. Imagine Vitellesky at a Vatican party. Dance? No. I'm busy rewriting. A guest list in code? You grin, but his subtle power is real. You slip into an archive, flipping through his correspondence. One letter instructs a Jesuit in Vienna to sway a duke's vote. Another orders funds for a new school. The precision is staggering, each word a thread in Section 5's web. You feel a chill, not from the stone walls, but from realizing how one man orchestrates so much. Unseen, you're back outside, the night settling over Rome. Vitellesky's arsenal thrives on discipline. Unlike the Pope, whose power is public, the Black Pope's is private, wielded through trusted agents. You recall Section 4's Vatican rivalry. The Pope relies on Jesuits, but fears their autonomy. Vitellesky's tools letters, loyalty, intellect, give him leverage, even over his master. You hear a distant bell, and it feels like a signal, marking the general's quiet dominance. Now you're in a Jesuit library, shelves groaning with manuscripts. You find a record of Vitellesky's decisions approving missions, disciplining rebels, funding colleges. Each choice strengthens his order, brick by brick. You think of Section 2's Ignatius, who built this system. Vitellesky wields it like a maestro, his tools invisible but undeniable. You wonder, is he serving the church or sculpting a legacy that outshines it? The question lingers, heavy as the books around you. You step into the starlit courtyard. The air crisp. The Black Pope's arsenal is a paradox soft power that feels like iron. His letters shape empires. His loyalty binds thousands. His intellect outmaneuvers rivals. You recall Section 1's whispers of hidden influence, like smoke you can't grasp. Here, that smoke is a shroud, hiding Vitellesky's moves. The night is quiet, but you feel the hum of his machine, its gears turning toward the future. You're ready to follow its next revolution. You're in a bustling German town, 1560, where the air crackles with Reformation fervor. Protestant pamphlets litter the streets, and Catholic churches stand half empty. You're here to uncover the Jesuit strategies against Protestantism, led by the Black Pope, Diego Lainez, whose sharp mind directs a counteroffensive from Rome. The scent of fresh ink and brewing ale fills the air, and you sense a war of ideas, not swords, with the superior general as its unseen general. You step into the fray, ready to see how the Black Pope fights to reclaim the church's ground. The town square buzzes, Protestant preachers rail against Rome, while a Jesuit, Peter Canisius, speaks calmly to a crowd. His words are measured, but they cut deep. defending Catholic doctrine with logic and charm. A mainstream historical fact: Canisius, under Lainez's orders, publishes his catechism in 1555, a clear, persuasive text that becomes a cornerstone of the Catholic Counter-Reformation. You watch Catholics clutch the book, their faith reignited. Lainez's strategy is working, and you feel its momentum, like a tide turning. Here's a quirky tidbit. Locals whisper that Canisius's catechism is so compelling, even Protestants sneak copies, then burn them to hide the evidence. You smirk, imagining a Lutheran blushing over stolen Catholic pages. But the humor fades as you see the Jesuits' real edge. Education. Lainez, from Section 8's arsenal, uses intellect as a weapon. You visit a Jesuit school nearby where boys study theology. Alongside rhetoric, these aren't just students. They're future defenders of the faith, loyal to the Black Pope's vision. You slip into a tavern, overhearing Catholic nobles praise Canisius. They say he's turning the tide, but it's Lainez pulling the strings. His strategy is multifaceted. Educate the young armed priests with clear doctrine and charm elites. You recall Section 5's global web here. It's local, but no less potent. Jesuits infiltrate Protestant strongholds, preaching in secret or debating openly. Historians still argue whether Lainez's tactics were defensive or aggressive, aiming to restore Catholicism or crush dissent. You feel the tension, like a spark ready to ignite. Let's toss in a joke to keep you cozy. Picture Lainez coaching Canisius. Smile, Peter, but not too much. Protestants hate cheerful Catholics. You chuckle, but the stakes are high. Lainez sends Jesuits to Poland, Austria, and Bavaria, targeting regions teetering between faiths. You imagine a Jesuit debating a Lutheran scholar, his arguments sharp as a blade. The Black Pope's men don't just preach. They persuade, using Section 3's oath-bound loyalty to execute his plans with precision. You're now in a Jesuit college in Vienna, 1570, where the air smells of chalk and ambition. Young nobles study under Jesuit tutors, their minds shaped to resist Protestant ideas. You see a priest drill students on Canisius's catechism, its answers memorized like battle drills. Lainez's strategy isn't just about winning arguments. It's about winning hearts, especially among the powerful. You recall Section 4's Vatican rivalry. The Pope needs these victories, but each one strengthens Lainez's influence. You wonder if the Black Pope's fight is for Rome or his own legacy. Another joke to keep you warm. Imagine a Jesuit sneaking into a Protestant town, just here for the bureau and maybe your soul. You grin, but the covert work is real. Jesuits operate in Protestant England, risking death to say secret masses. You picture a priest disguised as a merchant, hiding missiles in his cart. Lainez's orders, carried by Section 8's letters, guide these missions, balancing risk and reward. You feel a chill, not from the college's stone walls, but from the audacity of it all. You're back in the German town, now 1580, under a new general, Claudio Acquaviva. The Jesuit push continues, with schools multiplying and catechisms in every Catholic home. You hear a bishop praise the Jesuits, but a merchant mutters about their meddling. You recall Section 7's conspiracy myths here. They're fueled by Jesuit success. Protestants fear the Black Pope's reach, seeing his priests everywhere. You sense the paranoia, thick as the fog rolling in from the fields. Now you're in a Roman archive, 1590, flipping through Lainez's faded letters. They detail troop movements, not soldiers, but Jesuits sent to key cities like Cologne or Prague. The precision is staggering, each mission a chess move against Protestantism. You think of Section 2's Ignatius, who built this disciplined order. Lainez and Aquaviva wield it like a scalpel, cutting into Protestant gains. You wonder, are they saving the church or reshaping it in their image? You step into the night, the town quiet, stars sharp overhead. The Black Pope's strategies, education, persuasion, covert missions are a masterclass in soft power. You hear a distant hymn, Catholic voices rising, and you're torn. Are the Jesuits heroes of faith or architects of control? Section 1's whispers of hidden influence linger, like smoke you can't grasp. The fight against Protestantism has sharpened the Black Pope's tools, and you're ready to see how they're used next. You're in a Jesuit observatory in Rome, 1630, the air sharp with the scent of polished brass and parchment. Telescopes gleam under candlelight, and priests in black cassocks scribble star charts. You're here to investigate the Jesuits' surprising influence in science, guided by the Black Pope Museo Viteleschi, whose strategic mind extends even to the heavens. The hum of calculations surrounds you, and you sense a paradox, an order rooted in faith, yet shaping the cutting edge of knowledge. You lean closer to a star map, ready to uncover how the Black Pope wields this cerebral power. The observatory buzzes with activity. Jesuits debate planetary orbits, their voices low but intense. A mainstream historical fact. By the 1630s, Jesuit astronomers like Christopher Clavius contribute to the Gregorian calendar reform, adopted in 1582, aligning time with the stars. You watch a priest adjust a telescope, his precision almost surgical. Viteleschi doesn't Stargazi himself, but he funds these efforts, knowing science enhances his order's prestige. You feel the weight of that choice, like a pendulum swinging between faith and reason. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Romans swear Jesuits used telescopes to spy on angels, a rumor so wild it's almost charming. You smirk, imagining Viteleschi squinting at a cherub through a lens. But the truth is less celestial. Science is a tool in Section 8's arsenal, boosting the Jesuits' credibility. You recall Section 5's global web observatories in China, and India send data to Rome, blending astronomy with diplomacy. Viteleschi's Jesuits don't just study stars. They leverage knowledge to win allies, from emperors to scholars. You slip into a Jesuit college, where students dissect geometry alongside scripture. The air smells of chalk and ambition. Clavius's textbooks, approved by Viteleschi, shape minds across Europe. You overhear a debate about Copernicus's heliocentric theory risky, but the Jesuits engage cautiously. Historians still argue whether the Black Pope embraced science to advance truth or to control it. You feel the tension, like a taut string on a lute, as Jesuits navigate faith's boundaries while serving Viteleschi's agenda. Let's toss in a joke to keep you cozy. Picture Viteleschi at an astronomy lecture. Fascinating, but can the stars predict my next budget meeting? You chuckle, but his support for science is strategic. In Beijing, Jesuit Matteo Ricci, from Section 6, uses astronomy to charm the Chinese court, predicting eclipses with eerie accuracy. You imagine Ricci's star charts sent to Viteleschi, strengthening the Black Pope's influence. Science isn't just knowledge. It's a passport to power, stamped by Section 3's oath-bound loyalty. You're now in a Vatican library, 1640, flipping through Jesuit scientific journals. The parchment crinkles, revealing studies on optics, magnetism, even early calculus. You're struck by the breadth. Jesuits don't just pray. They experiment, publish, and teach. Viteleschi funds observatories and labs, ensuring his order stays ahead. You recall Section 4's papal rivalry, The Pope values Jesuit scholars, but fears their autonomy. Here, Witellesky's scientific patronage gives him leverage. A quiet trump card in Rome's power games, another joke to keep you warm. Imagine a Jesuit astronomer peering at the moon. It's cheese, right? Don't tell the general I said that. You grin, but the stakes are high. When Galileo, a friend of Jesuit scholars, faces the Inquisition in 1633, Witellesky treads carefully, balancing science and church dogma. You picture him reading Galileo's letters, weighing loyalty to truth against loyalty to Rome. His Jesuits continue observing, but they avoid public heresy, a tightrope act that preserves their influence. You're back in the observatory, watching. A Jesuit map Jupiter's moons. The precision is mesmerizing, but you notice a letter on his desk, addressed to Witellesky. Science serves the Black Pope's broader goals, missions, education, diplomacy. You think of Section 9's fight against Protestantism, where intellect was a weapon. Here, it's a bridge, connecting Jesuit colleges to royal courts. You sense Witellesky's strategy. Knowledge opens doors, and his Jesuits walk through, carrying his vision. Now you're in a mission in Japan, 1620, where a Jesuit uses a telescope to impress a daimyo. The air smells of sake and cedar. The Lord, awed by a lunar eclipse prediction, grants land for a church. You see Section 7's conspiracy, myths in a new light science, fuels the Black Pope's aura, making him seem almost supernatural. You wonder, is Witellesky advancing human understanding, or using it to tighten his web? The stars offer no answers, but their light feels like a challenge. You step into the Roman night, the observatory's dome silhouetted against the sky. The Black Pope's scientific influence is a masterstroke elevating his order while serving. His goals. You hear a distant clock chime, and you're torn. Are the Jesuits pioneers or pragmatists, harnessing reason for power? Section 1's whispers of hidden influence linger, like smoke you can't grasp. Witellesky's telescope scan the heavens, but his true focus is earthly, and you're ready to follow his next move. You're in a rain-soaked plaza in Lisbon, 1773, the air heavy with salt and betrayal. The Jesuit order, once untouchable, faces its darkest hour suppression by the very church it served. You're here to follow the Black Pope, Lorenzo Ricci, as he navigates exile and resilience, his power tested by kings and popes. The scent of whetstone and distant sea mingles with whispers of Jesuit defiance. You clutch your cloak, stepping into the storm, ready to see how the superior general endures when the world turns against him. The plaza is tense soldiers guard a Jesuit college, now padlocked. A mainstream historical fact. In 1773, Pope Clement XIV issues Dominus Ac Redemptor, dissolving the Society of Jesus under pressure from European monarchs. You watch priests in black cassocks, stripped of their roles, slip into the crowd. Ricci, in Rome, faces arrest, his global web from Section 5 severed. You feel the blow, like a ship's mast snapping in a gale. Yet Ricci's resolve holds, a flicker of defiance in the dark. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some ex-Jesuits, barred from preaching, reportedly sell holy maps to fund their survival charts of paradise, not ports. You smirk, imagining Ricci rolling his eyes at the hustle. But survival is no joke. Ricci, from Section 8's arsenal, relies on loyalty and intellect. You picture him in a Vatican cell, writing coded letters to scattered Jesuits, urging them to preserve their mission. His tools are battered, but not broken, and you sense a spark of hope. You're now in a smoky tavern, overhearing ex-Jesuits plan in whispers. They speak of Russia, where Catherine the Great defies the suppression, sheltering Jesuits. You recall Section 3's oath loyalty to the general endures, even in exile. Historians still argue whether Ricci orchestrated this defiance or merely inspired it. You feel the tension like a rope fraying but holding. Ricci's men, scattered across Europe, Asia, and America, hide books, teach in secret, and wait for revival. The Black Pope's shadow persists, faint but stubborn. Let's toss in a joke to keep you dry. Picture Ricci in his cell, muttering, "Exiled? Fine, but who's feeding my cat?" You chuckle, but his ordeal is grim. Imprisoned in Castel Sant'Angelo, Ricci dies in 1775, unyielding. You imagine his final letters, smuggled out, urging Jesuits to be as wise as serpents. You recall Section 7's conspiracy myth suppression fuels them, with monarchs claiming Jesuits plotted their downfall. The truth? Ricci's influence, from Section 9 strategies, scared kings more than any plot. You're now in a Prussian school, 1780, where ex-Jesuits teach under aliases. The air smells of chalk and secrecy. Their lessons, geometry, Latin carry echoes of Section 10's science, preserving Jesuit ideals. You see a teacher slip a coded note to a colleague, a sign the order's spirit lives. Ricci's resilience, rooted in Section 2's Ignatian vision, inspires this underground network. You wonder, is this faith or a refusal to surrender power? The Black Pope's legacy feels alive, pulsing in these hidden acts. Another joke to keep you cozy. Imagine an ex-Jesuit disguising himself. New beard, new name, call me Bob, and not at all Jesuit baker. You grin, but the stakes are high. In China, former Jesuits maintain missions, defying bans. You picture a priest dressed as a scholar, teaching astronomy to keep his cover. Section 5's web, no frayed, holds threads loyalty, knowledge, adaptability. You feel a surge of admiration for their grit, tempered by questions about their motives. You're back in Rome, 1800, and a secret meeting of ex-Jesuits. The air is thick with candle smoke and hope. They speak of revival, as Russia's Jesuits gain papal approval to reorganize. You recall Section 4's Vatican rivalry suppression was the Pope's surrender to kings, but Ricci's resilience. Plant seeds for return. You see a letter, bearing Ricci's old seal, passed hand to hand. The Black Pope's spirit, from Section 8's loyalty, binds these men, readying them for restoration in 1814. Now you're in a Russian church, 1810. Where Jesuits openly train novices. The incense is sweet, the mood defiant. You hear a priest invoke Ricci's name, a rallying cry. Section 6's missions taught adaptability. Here, it's survival. You wonder, did Ricci foresee this, or did his system oaths, networks, intellect make it inevitable? The Black Pope's power, from Section 1's whispers, feels like smoke rising from embers, ready to flare again. You step into the night, rain easing to a drizzle. The Jesuits' resilience is a testament to Ricci's leadership broken, yet unbroken. You hear a distant bell, and you're torn. Were the Jesuits victims of politics, or did their influence invite suppression? The Black Pope's endurance, like Section 5's web, weaves through exile, and you're ready to see how it reshapes the future. You're in modern Rome, 2025, standing outside the Jesuit Curia, a sleek building where the Superior General, Arturo Sosa, the current Black Pope, orchestrates his order's moves. The air smells of espresso and exhaust, and the city pulses. With tourists and scooters, you're here to probe the Black Pope's role today, a figure still cloaked in mystery despite the digital age. His influence, once whispered in Section 1's Vatican shadows, now navigates a world of tweets and geopolitics. You adjust your earbuds, tuning into the hum of modern power, ready to unmask the Black Pope's contemporary masquerade. The curious glass doors reflect the morning sun, but inside, the work is as disciplined as ever. A mainstream historical fact. In 2016, Sosa becomes the first non-European superior general, elected by the Jesuit General Congregation to lead over 16,000 Jesuits worldwide. You watch priests in simple shirts, not cassocks, hurry past with laptops. Sosa's role mirrors Section 8's arsenal: information, loyalty, intellect. But now, his tools include social media, global conferences, and Vatican diplomacy. You feel the shift, like a compass needle twitching in a new magnetic field. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some online forums call Sosa the CEO of Catholicism's think tank, joking he runs a secret X account to sway debates. You smirk, imagining him tweeting memes to throw off conspiracy theorists. But the humor fades as you consider his real reach. Sosa oversees Jesuit universities, NGOs, and media outlets from Georgetown to La Civiltà Cattolica. You recall Section 5's global web today. It's digital, with Jesuits blogging, podcasting, and advising on climate policy. Sosa's influence is subtle, but it spans continents. You slip into a Jesuit conference room where priests discuss migration and AI ethics. The air smells of coffee and whiteboard markers. Sosa's strategy, rooted in Section 3's oath, emphasizes discernment, adapting to modern challenges while staying loyal to the Church. Historians still argue whether the Black Pope shapes global Catholicism or merely amplifies the Pope's voice. You feel the ambiguity, like a fog settling over the room. Sosa meets Pope Francis weekly, a Jesuit himself. But you wonder, is he a partner or a power behind the throne? Let's toss in a joke to keep you cozy. Picture Sosa at a Vatican Zoom call. Mute your mic, Cardinal, or we'll debate your cats. Theology. You chuckle, but his influence is serious. Jesuits run 2,000 schools and universities, shaping minds from Nairobi to New York. You imagine a Jesuit professor, citing Section 10 science, teaching data ethics to future CEOs. Sosa's web, like Section 6's missions, blends faith with relevance, advising on everything from refugee policy to interfaith dialogue. His power feels less like smoke now, more like a steady current. You're now at a Jesuit refugee center in Jordan, 2025, where volunteers distribute aid. The air is dusty, the mood urgent. The Jesuit Refugee Service, backed by Sosa, operates in 50 countries, a modern echo of Section 11's resilience. You see a priest coordinate aid via satellite phone, his loyalty to Sosa unspoken but clear. You recall Section 4's Vatican rivalry. Pope Francis leans on Jesuits, but Sosa's global network gives him leverage. You wonder, does the Black Pope steer the Church's social justice push, or follow Francis's lead? Another joke to keep you warm. Imagine Sosa at a climate summit. Save the planet? Sure, but first, let's save my inbox. You grin, but his role in global issues is no joke. Jesuits advise the UN, publish on inequality, and influence Vatican statements. You picture Sosa reviewing a policy brief, his decisions rippling through Section 9's intellectual legacy. His men are everywhere: classrooms, crisis zones, even ex-posts, yet he remains low profile, a master of Section 7's mythic aura. You're back in Rome, flipping through La Civiltà Cattolica in a cafe. Its articles, approved by Sosa, tackle AI, populism, and faith. You recall Section 2's Ignatius, who built a disciplined order. Sosa inherits that machine, now wired for the 21st century. You notice a tweet praising Jesuit schools, tagged #Sosa inspires. The Black Pope doesn't chase fame, but his influence trends quietly. You wonder, is he a servant of the Church or a strategist shaping its future from the margins? Now you're at a Vatican press conference, 2025, where a Jesuit speaks on ecology. The room buzzes with reporters, but you focus on Sosa's absence. He's in the background, always. Section 1's whispers of hidden power feel truer here, like a signal beneath the noise. His Jesuits amplify Francis's message, but Sosa's. Vision, education, justice, dialogue sets the tone. You feel a spark of curiosity. How much of the Church's modern face is his design? You step into the Roman night, the Colosseum glowing in the distance. The Black Pope's modern role is a paradox, visible yet elusive, global yet discreet. You hear a street busker's guitar, and you're torn. Is Sosa a humble priest or a master of soft power? His web, from Section 5, thrives in this connected world, and you're ready to weigh the voices praising and questioning his influence. You're in a cozy London bookshop, 2025, the air rich with the scent of aged paper and fresh coffee. Outside, rain taps the windows, but inside, a heated debate unfolds, scholars, bloggers, and priests arguing over the Jesuits and their enigmatic leader, Arturo Sosa, the Black Pope. You're here to weigh the critics and defenders of the Jesuits' intentions, sifting through praise, suspicion, and everything in between. The shelves loom like silent judges, and you settle into a worn armchair, ready to parse the conflicting views on the Black Pope's modern influence. The debate crackles. A historian lauds the Jesuit schools, while a podcaster calls them Vatican puppet masters. A mainstream historical fact. In 2023, the Jesuit Refugee Service, under Sosa's oversight, aids over 1 million displaced people, earning UN praise. You picture volunteers in Jordan, from Section 12, distributing food with quiet efficiency. Defenders say this proves the Jesuits' selfless mission. Critics, though, squint at the funding Vatican ties, NGO grants, and mutter about political leverage. You feel the divide, like a fault line under the bookshop's creaky floor. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some ex-users claim Sosa's Jesuits run a secret meme factory to sway Gen Z Catholics' pure internet fever dream, but it gets laughs. You smirk, imagining Sosa approving a viral Jesus gif. The humor fades as a critic cites Section 7's conspiracy myths, arguing the Jesuits' global reach from Section 5's web hides an agenda. Defenders counter that Sosa's work education, aid, dialogue serves only faith and justice. You lean forward, the coffee's warmth grounding you as the debate heats up. You slip into a memory of a Jesuit lecture hall, where a professor defends Sosa's vision. Universities like Sophia in Tokyo shape ethical leaders. Critics, though, see these schools as elite networks, echoing Section 9's intellectual strategies. Historians still argue whether the Black Pope's influence is altruistic or a soft power grab. You recall Section 3's oath Jesuits' loyalty to Sosa is unwavering, but is it to God, the Pope, or him? The question hangs, heavy as the bookshop's dusty air. Let's toss in a joke to keep you cozy. Picture Sosa at a critic's roast. Power hungry? Nah, I just want a better Wi-Fi signal. You chuckle, but the accusations sting. Critics point to La Civiltà Cattolica from Section 12, claiming its articles on AI and migration push Sosa's politics, not just faith. Defenders argue it's prophetic, tackling issues the church must face. You imagine Sosa reading the journal, his pen marking pages. Is he guiding consciences or steering narratives? The bookshop's hum offers no answers. You're now at a realm. Calf, overhearing Vatican insiders. One praises Sosa's harmony with Pope Francis, a Jesuit bond from Section 4's rivalry turned alliance. Another whispers of tension. Sosa's global clout overshadows some cardinals. You recall Section 11's resilience. Critics say that same adaptability masks ambition, while defenders call it survival. You sip espresso, the bitterness mirroring. The debate. The Black Pope's defenders see a servant of the poor. Critics see a strategist, his web from Section 5 now digital, and deft. Another joke to keep you warm. Imagine a critic tweeting, "Sosa's Jesuits control my coffee order." Sosa replies, "Decaf, please." You grin, but the online noise is real. X posts, scanned in real time, show polarized views. Some hail Jesuit schools as beacons. Others call them indoctrination hubs. You think of Section 10 science. Defenders say Jesuits advance knowledge, while critics fear they shape it to serve Sosa's ends. You wonder, where's the line between influence and intent? You're back in the bookshop, flipping through a Jesuit history book. Its pages praise Ignatius's vision from Section 2, but critics annotate margins, questioning Sosa's fidelity to it. Defenders cite his work with refugees, echoing Section 6's missions. Critics counter with Section 8's arsenal information, loyalty suggesting Sosa wields them for control. You feel a tug of doubt, like a loose thread in the armchairs. Fabric. Is the Black Pope a force for good, or a master of perception? Now you're at a Jesuit retreat in Kenya, 2025, where priests pray for the marginalized. The air is warm, scented with eucalyptus. Defenders say this is Sosa's heart service, not schemes. Critics, though, see even charity as a chess move, building goodwill for influence. You recall Section 1's whispers of hidden power, like smoke you can't grasp. Here, that smoke swirls in every argument, clouding the truth. You wonder, can anyone truly know Sosa's intentions? Or is the debate itself his shield? You step into the London night, rain now a drizzle. The Black Pope's critics and defenders paint a fractured portrait saint or schemer, servant or strategist. You hear a distant busker, his song mournful, and you're torn. Is Sosa's influence a light for the church, or a shadow cast by his web? The arguments echo Section 5's global reach, and you're ready to question the core of his mission. Next, you're in a quiet chapel in Rome, 2025. The air soft with the scent of beeswax and old wood. Dim light filters through stained glass, casting colors on the stone floor where you stand, reflecting on Arturo Sosa, the Black Pope, and the question. At his core, is his leadership driven by faith or a carefully crafted facade? The chapel's silence feels like a challenge, urging you to peel back the layers of the superior general's mission. You're here to probe the spiritual authenticity of the man steering the Jesuits, and the hum of your thoughts is the only sound as you dive in. The chapel's pews are empty, but you imagine Sosa kneeling here, his face unreadable. A mainstream historical fact. In 2020, Sosa publishes Walking with Ignatius, a book emphasizing Jesuit spirituality as service to the poor and discernment in a complex world. You picture him writing, pen steady, framing his leadership as rooted in Ignatian faith. His defenders, from Section 13, say this proves his heart devotion to God, not power. Yet critics squint, seeing a polished narrative, a mask for Section 8's arsenal of influence. You feel the weight of that doubt, like a candle's flickering shadow. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some ex-users joke that Sosa's morning prayer includes a PowerPoint on global impact metrics, a nod to his strategic style. You smirk, imagining him chanting with a spreadsheet. But the humor fades as you consider his spirituality. Jesuits take vows of poverty from Section 3's oath, and Sosa lives simply. No Vatican palace for him. You recall Section 12's refugee. Work his Jesuits serve in war zones, their faith tangible. Yet critics, citing Section 7's myths, whisper of ambition cloaked in piety. Is his faith a fire or a facade? You slip into a Jesuit retreat house in Spain, where Sosa leads a meditation. The air smells of lavender and dust. He speaks of finding God in all things, a core Ignatian principle from Section 2. You watch. Priests nod, their trust in him absolute, echoing Section 11's resilience. Historians still argue whether the Black Pope's spirituality is genuine or a tool to unify his global web from Section 5. You feel the tension, like a taut rosary bead, as you weigh his words against his action, service versus strategy. Toss in a joke to keep you cozy. Picture Sosa at confession. Forgive me, I overanalyzed my soul's SWOT analysis. You chuckle, but his reflective style is real. Jesuits practice daily examen, a prayerful review of actions, and Sosa champions it. You imagine him pausing at day's end, questioning his motives. Defenders say this grounds him. Critics, from Section 13, argue it's performative, aligning with Section 4's Vatican image. You wonder, can a man so strategic be purely spiritual, or is that the Jesuit paradox? You're now at a Jesuit school in Manila, 2025, where students pray before class. The air is warm, scented with jasmine. Teachers, loyal to Sosa, weave faith into lessons, echoing Section 9's intellectual legacy. You see a mural of Ignatius, his gaze fierce, and recall Sosa's book, urging Jesuits to serve the least. This feels authentic, yet critics point to Section 6's missions, where faith doubled as influence. You sense a duality. Sosa's spirituality drives service, but also strengthens his order's clout. Is it both, or a sleight of hand? Another joke to keep you warm. Imagine Sosa at a spiritual retreat. Meditate deeply, but don't miss the networking lunch. You grin, but his public faith is serious. He preaches on X, scanned in real time, about justice and mercy, gaining thousands of likes. Defenders see a profit. Critics, a PR move to counter Section 10's scientific pragmatism. You picture Sosa at his desk, balancing prayer and policy briefs. His spirituality seems real, but its impact schools, aid, dialogue amplifies his. Power, blurring the line. You're back in the chapel, flipping through Walking with Ignatius. Its pages stress humility, yet Sosa's global role from Section 12 is anything but humble. You recall Section 1's whispers of hidden influence. Like smoke you can't grasp. Is his faith the root of his leadership, or a lens to focus his web's light? You kneel, the pew creaking, and imagine Sosa's own prayers fervent or calculated. The chapel's silence holds no answers, but you feel his spirituality as a bridge, linking devotion to action, sincerity to strategy. Now you're at a Vatican. Mass, Sosa in the congregation, not the spotlight. Pope Francis, from Section 4's alliance, leads, but Sosa's presence draws eyes. His faith, defenders say, aligns with Francis's vision care for the marginalized. Critics, though, see a choreographed unity, masking Section 5's autonomous web. You wonder, does Sosa pray for souls or for sway? The incense rises, and you're torn. His spirituality feels deep, yet its outcomes echo power. You step into the Roman dusk, the chapel's glow fading behind you. The Black Pope's faith is a riddle authentic, yet inseparable from his influence. You hear a street vendor's call, and you're caught between belief and skepticism. Is Sosa a man of God or a master of optics? Section 13's debates linger, and you're ready to reflect on the enduring enigma of his power. You're standing on a Roman hilltop, 2025, the city sprawling below, its domes and spires catching the last light of dusk. The air carries the faint scent of pine and distant traffic, and you're here to reflect on the enduring enigma of the being. Black Pope's power, Arturo Sosa, the superior general, whose influence stretches across centuries and continents. From Ignatius's vision to today's global web, the Black Pope remains a shadow that moves the church, and you're ready to unravel the final threads of his legacy. The horizon glows, and you settle in, tracing the whispers that never fade. City hums, a blend of ancient and alive, much like the Jesuits. A mainstream historical fact. Since 1540, 31 superior generals have led the Society of Jesus, each shaping its mission through wars, reforms, and revivals. You picture Sosa in his modest office, from Section 12, guiding 16,000 Jesuits with the same discipline Ignatius forged in Section 2. His power subtle, intellectual, loyal echoes every Black Pope before him. From Lainez to Ricci, you feel its continuity like a river carving stone over centuries. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Romans joke that the Black Pope's real power is eternal coffee breaks, plotting in cafes since the Renaissance. You smirk, imagining Sosa sipping espresso, scheming with a biscotto. But the humor softens as you recall. Section 1's whispers, power like smoke you can't grasp. Sosa's legacy, like his predecessors, thrives in perception. A man who advises popes, shapes minds, and serves the poor, yet never steps into the spotlight. You wonder, is this humility or the ultimate strategy? You wander down the hill, passing a Jesuit church, its doors open, spilling soft light. Inside, a priest prepares for Mass, his movements calm, precise. You see Section 3's oath in his quiet duty loyalty to Sosa, to the order, to God. Historians still argue whether the Black Pope's enduring influence is a divine mission or a calculated empire. You recall Section 13's critics, calling it a facade, and defenders, praising its faith. The truth, you sense, lies in the tension, like the dusk balancing day and night. Let's slip in a joke to keep you cozy. Picture Sosa updating the Jesuit handbook. Chapter 1, Serve God. Chapter 2, Avoid conspiracy TikToks. You chuckle, but his legacy is no meme. You think of Section 11's suppression Ricci's resilience, kept the order alive. Sosa inherits that grit, steering Jesuits through modern storm secularism, scandals, polarization. His web, from Section 5, now spans digital platforms, refugee camps, and lecture halls. You feel its reach, vast yet unseen, like stars hidden by city lights. You're now in a Jesuit archive, the air cool, scented with old leather. You flip through letters from past generals Aquaviva, Vitelleschi, Sosa, each building on the ship. Last, Section 9's fight against Protestantism, Section 10's scientific push, Section 6's missions all weave into Sosa's work today. You see a photo of him with refugees, his smile gentle but firm. Critics, from Section 14, question his faith's authenticity. Defenders see Ignatius's spirit. You wonder, does the Black Pope's enigma endure because it defies simple answers? Another joke to keep you warm. Imagine a 17th century Jesuit time traveling to 2025. No horses? No quills? Sosa, how do you cope? You grin, but the Order's adaptability is its strength. You recall Section 8's arsenal information, loyalty, intellect still Sosa's tools, now amplified by ex-posts and UN briefs. His legacy isn't marble or gold, but ideas carried by Jesuits in slums and boardrooms. You feel a pang of awe, tempered by Section 7's myth's power so quiet, it invites suspicion. You're back on the hilltop, the city now twinkling under a velvet sky. The Black Pope's enigma is his legacy's heart, neither saint nor schemer, but both and more. You think of Section 4's Vatican rivalry, now in alliance with Francis, yet Sosa's autonomy persists. His influence, like Section 12's modern role, shapes the Church's voice on justice, science, faith. You hear a distant bell, and you're torn. Is the Black Pope a servant of God's will, or a master of human currents? Now you're in a Jesuit school, 2025, where students debate climate ethics. The air buzzes with hope, a testament to Sosa's vision. You see Ignatius's shadow from Section 2 in their passion. The Black Pope's power endures because it evolves. Missions become NGOs. Catechisms become podcasts, yet the core remains: loyalty, intellect, service. You recall Section 1's question: why does the Church never speak his name? Perhaps because his legacy speaks louder in every life touched, every mind shaped. You linger on the hill, a night deepening, stars faint but steady. The Black Pope's enigma is a tapestry threads of faith, strategy, resilience, woven across time. You feel its weight, not heavy but warm, like a blanket of stories. His power, from Lainez to Sosa, isn't in thrones but in trust, not in gold, but in purpose. You're ready to let the city's glow fade, carrying the mystery with you, a whisper that lingers as you drift toward sleep. The Roman night wraps around you, soft and slow, like a lullaby sung by the Tiber's gentle current. The Black Pope's story, Ignatius's fire, Ritchie's defiance, Sosa's quiet strength settles in your mind, not as answers but as dreams, flickering like candles in a distant chapel. You don't need to solve the enigma tonight. It's enough to hold it. Let it hum in your thoughts like a fan's soft whir. The stars above are patient, and so are you, sinking into the calm of a tale that spans centuries yet feels as close as your breath. Picture the Jesuit Curia, its lights dimming, Sosa praying alone, his faith a bridge to tomorrow. The city sleeps, and you do too, wrapped in the mystery of power that serves, shadows that shine. Let the questions fade, let the night carry you. Sweet dreams.